We're starting with SmackDown as Jade Cargill finally got involved on the blue brand in impressive fashion by single-handedly taking care of a major nuisance in the women's division. Cargill sent shockwaves through the industry when she signed with WWE in September 2023, but since then has only competed in the Women's Royal Rumble match. On SmackDown, Nick Aldis spoke about how Jade will ensure that the show remains the #1 show in all of wrestling before Cargill appeared to a huge ovation. Wasting no time, Cargill asserted that while WWE's women's division is one of the best in the world, none of them are Jade Cargill, and confirmed that the Storm has officially arrived. Later in the show, a segment aired with Io Sky at the Performance Center in which the women's champion discussed Damage Control's recent actions. Sky claimed that Bayley was trying to steal the heat from the group and called her an embarrassment to WWE and hopes to never see her ex-friend again after WrestleMania. This was when Bayley launched a surprise attack on Sky, delivering a series of punishing blows, and this brawl would only be broken up when Performance Center staff intervened. Bayley will have the chance to get retribution at WrestleMania when she faces Sky, and it seems the rest of Damage Control will be kept preoccupied during the upcoming show. Later on in the night, Dakota Kai was set to take on Bianca Belair in the main event, and both women put on a vicious fight with Belair's strength being evident throughout. She threw Kai across the ring multiple times before hitting the KOD on Kai to pick up the win, but the EST was attacked after the match by Damage Control. Naomi came to her rescue, but the numbers game proved too much for both women, and the assault continued until Cargill's music played, and she took out 3 Damage Control members. Cargill stood tall with Belair and Naomi, and it looks like Jade has just inserted herself into this feud with a Damage Control that has been wreaking havoc in the women's division for months. Shortly after, it was announced that Jade will make her WrestleMania debut next week in a 6-woman tag pitting herself, Belair, and Naomi against Kai, Asuka, and Kairi Sane. This will be a huge test for Cargill, who to date has only one WWE match to her name, and time will tell how she copes with the spotlight of WrestleMania. This week's Raw went off the air in stunning fashion with The Rock brutalizing Cody Rhodes and leaving him a bloody mess in the pouring rain in Chicago, but the attack didn't stop there. In footage shared on social media, The Rock continued to assault Rhodes while swearing at the production crew, despite them saying that they'd finished and were off the air. On Instagram, The Rock wrote about having enough of constraints and rules, and he doesn't stop whatever he's doing just because a WWE producer says they're clear. This post-Raw attack certainly shocked fans, as The Rock's heel persona is holding nothing back, even leaving WWE's most popular star in a pool of his own blood. Given WWE's usual policy with blood, it was certainly a shocking way for Raw to go off the air, and has raised questions as to what WWE's policy actually is concerning blood. In the Wrestling Observer newsletter, it said that The Rock will have considerable freedom to pursue his creative vision, and as he pushes boundaries, other top stars may be granted leeway. However, it's important to note that WWE is no longer solely under Vince McMahon's control, and moving forward, the use of blood will be limited on programming. Fans should not expect WWE to adopt a liberal approach to blood akin to what we see in AEW, where stars like Jon Moxley blade on a semi-regular basis. The surprising display of aggression by The Rock towards Cody Rhodes has left fans in a state of disbelief, as fans simply thought they wouldn't see this level of The Rock on WWE TV. With this attack, anticipation continues to build ahead of their plans at WrestleMania 40, and it remains to be seen who leaves Philadelphia standing tall. But what do you think of this? Do you feel WWE using blood sparingly is the best course of action for the company? Let us know in the comments section below. On SmackDown, Paul Heyman was around to talk about the attack by The Rock on Cody Rhodes during Raw, which was actually orchestrated by somebody else. On SmackDown, Heyman revealed that it was his tribal chief Roman Reigns who was behind the attack, and The Rock was carrying out his cousin's orders. Heyman, Jimmy Uso, and Solo Sikoa were the representatives of the Bloodline on SmackDown, but that didn't stop anticipation growing about Reigns and Rock's upcoming tag match. Both men are scheduled to appear on next week's Raw, and after what happened to Rhodes, fans can't wait to see what the Bloodline has in store for the go-home Raw before WrestleMania. It may have taken longer than first thought, but Cody Rhodes is seemingly on the cusp of becoming a WWE World Champion, as he'll face Roman Reigns on WrestleMania Sunday. With that said, you'd be forgiven for forgetting that Reigns is involved, as since his return, The Rock has dominated the storyline with the Universal Champion being pushed to the side. On this week's Busted Open Radio, Nick Nemeth discussed what many see as a big issue of this year's WrestleMania build. As he said, "Is Roman in this story, or is it Cody versus Rock at Mania? Because I forgot about him. After close to 4 years as champion, Roman's run with the gold may come to an end with him as the sidekick of The Rock. And what do you make of Nemeth's comments? Let us know down below. We still have one more SmackDown to go before the showcase of the Immortals, and a match has been confirmed for the show on the orders of Roman Reigns. During this week's SmackDown, Jimmy Uso said that his brother Jay won't make it to WrestleMania, as Jay will be tasked with going against Solo Sikoa next Friday. Solo then conveyed that Jay had to be taken out as per the orders of the head of the table, so expect Solo to hold nothing back against his older brother on next week's SmackDown. As a veteran of wrestling and the reigning AEW World Champion, it's no surprise Samoa Joe has merchandise, but a recent shirt for Joe has certainly raised some eyebrows. AEW's new shirt for Joe features his name and logo and dubs the AEW World Champion the main event and, more importantly, calls him the final boss. This is the same term that The Rock has been using to describe himself in WWE, which is both a play on his heel status and his real-life role as a TKO board member. Whether this is pure coincidence or not, that's a whole different story, but Samoa Joe is pleased to be known as the final boss, even if that term is already in use outside AEW. Now, Logan Paul has been feuding with Kevin Owens over the US title for some time now, and Randy Orton got added to the mix when Paul attacked him from behind with the brass knucks. That attack came during the men's Elimination Chamber match after Paul had been eliminated and would cost Orton the match and a shot at the World Heavyweight Championship. At WrestleMania, Paul will not have the champion's advantage, as he'll be defending against both Owens and Orton, but the two teamed together on SmackDown to face Pretty Deadly. WWE tag matches usually have a pattern to them, as you can often predict when tags, double team spots, and big moments will happen, which can make things too predictable. Thankfully, all four of these guys are talented, so this was a solid encounter to kick off the show, with Owens looking fired up from the start and took control of the match. Things were about to get worse for Pretty Deadly as Orton was getting ready to put them through the announcer's table, but Logan Paul's interference proved to be the difference maker. Paul appeared out of nowhere and hit Owens with the brass knuckles, allowing Pretty Deadly to pick up the win, and after the match, Orton was livid at Owens for losing the match. The Viper appeared oblivious to the attack by Paul and was berating Owens, who was still recovering from the sneak attack by the reigning United States Champion. This incident will only make things harder for Logan Paul at WrestleMania 40, as both Orton and Owens will be looking to take him out. The finish was something of a surprise, but led to a funny moment where Orton saw Paul scurrying under the ring during a replay, only to pull him out from under the ring. Orton then delivered a beatdown on the Maverick, and he and Owens would chase the US champion out of the arena. Paul, showing some real-life GTA skills, stole someone's car to escape the Viper and KO, though running away won't help him in the triple threat at WrestleMania 40. AJ Styles was on this week's SmackDown 1 week removed from being attacked at his own home by LA Knight and was unsurprisingly not happy about the assault. Styles blamed the fans for Knight attacking him last week and said he should have had Knight locked up for the attack, forcing the megastar to miss WrestleMania. Instead, though, Styles said that he wants Knight to have the biggest spotlight, that being WrestleMania, where AJ plans to expose the under-talented piece of trash. Styles said that Knight was at the show, and sure enough, a masked figure jumped over the barricade to get a piece of Styles, only to be detained by security. AJ was confident this was Knight, but the man was unmasked to be somebody else entirely, and Knight was actually disguised as a security guard and ambushed the Phenomenal One. Styles narrowly avoided the steel chair-wielding Knight and escaped through the crowd, while the megastar vowed victory at WrestleMania 40. Ironically, this wasn't Knight's first time dressing as security, as he was also on the post-SummerSlam 2011 episode of Raw in a segment with CM Punk and Kevin Nash. When Punk confronted Nash, who had cost him the WWE title the previous night, Big Daddy Cool had security block Punk, which included the man known today as LA Knight. Knight vs. Styles will have a lot of eyes on it next weekend, and it could also feature a new theme for Styles, who has used the same song in WWE since his arrival 8 years ago. During a recent Fanatics live signing while promoting a shirt bearing the slogan, "They Don't Want None," Styles hinted at new music coming very soon. He said, "You'll be surprised come WrestleMania when it comes to music. Not to let the cat out of the bag, it's big because my music is freaking awesome, but it doesn't suit the AJ Styles people they're seeing at this moment. It's hard to think of a better place to debut a new theme than WrestleMania, as Styles is ready to enter the show of shows yet again and hopes to get a monumental win over the megastar. More from WrestleMania now, as the show is mere days away, and while much of the card is known, there could be a huge surprise in store. There's been a lot of talk about John Cena having a role at the show, and while it's not confirmed, WWE has something of a mystery up its sleeves. The Wrestling Observer newsletter reports that there is a mystery slot planned for WrestleMania, though it's unclear if this is for Cena or somebody else. There's also been rumors of a role for Stone Cold and possibly even The Undertaker at WrestleMania, and fans won't have to wait long to see what this mystery is all about. On last week's SmackDown, Rey Mysterio made his in-ring return against Santos Escobar, but a masked figure grabbed his leg and would ultimately cost him the match. This turned out to be Dominik Mysterio, and the distraction allowed Escobar the chance to hit the Phantom Driver on Rey and win the match. During an in-ring segment this week, Legado del Fantasma welcomed Dominik, and Escobar apologized to him for what happened in the past, before the LWO came out. Rey made the challenge to Santos and Dirty Dom, saying he wanted a tag match with them at WrestleMania, in which Rey will team with the LWO's newest member, Dragon Lee. Lee had been missing from SmackDown for some time, but he's now back and officially an LWO member before a huge brawl took place. Right after the fight, Angel and Berto had to take on Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate in a tag match to determine who would go on to the six-pack challenge at WrestleMania. Despite Angel and Berto being beaten up, they ended up having a competitive fight against the British Strong Style specialists, but they still ended up losing to the New Catch Republic. This was a solid tag match that could have been much better with just a few more minutes, as all four men worked very well together, so let's hope we get to see more of them in the ring. Damian Priest spoke about WrestleMania and told his Judgment Day allies that this year's show will be a very important one for the group as individuals. Many fans feel this was Priest teasing that he'll finally cash in his contract at the biggest show of the year, as with 273 days gone since he won the briefcase, there's only a few months left. Priest needs to cash in his contract soon, and there's no bigger stage for him to do just that than at WrestleMania in front of tens of thousands of fans. Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins are completely focused on their ongoing rivalries right now, so Priest may see this as a golden opportunity to cash in on one of them. Priest could be on the cusp of not one, but two big changes though, as on SmackDown, there was some tension teased within the Judgment Day regarding Dominik Mysterio. None of the other members were aware about Dominik Mysterio going out to team with Santos Escobar as his partner against Rey Mysterio and Dragon Lee at WrestleMania 40. None of the members of his own group were pleased about Dirty Dom forming an alliance with someone from another stable, and Rhea Ripley was especially mad. Mysterio was forced to apologize to his Judgment Day allies and promised he would not do it again, but it's hard to ignore how this will play into WrestleMania. With a tag match planned, Dominik's focus won't be on the tag title match or the women's world title match that other members of the faction will be a part of next weekend. Could the lack of Mysterio prove to be a difference maker? Time will tell, but this week's SmackDown showed serious cracks in the Judgment Day. It was last year that the Street Profits formed an alliance with Bobby Lashley. Since then, the trio have looked dominant and vicious on SmackDown. Earlier this year, Lashley and the Profits proclaimed that they were going to become champions again, but their aspirations were put on hold when the Final Testament attacked them. Since then, Lashley and the Profits added B-Fab to their group, and on this week's SmackDown, the Profits faced Austin Theory and Grayson Waller for a spot in the WrestleMania ladder match. Both teams were engaged in a highly competitive match when Lashley and B-Fab were shown hurt on the Titantron, and Karrion Kross and Scarlett were then shown drinking champagne. Angelo Dawkins was about to leave the match, but Montez Ford went for the frog splash and missed, which led to Theory getting the roll-up for the win. Post-match, the Authors of Pain attacked the Profits from behind, and while Lashley came out and attacked Karrion Kross, the numbers game was too much in the end. AOP held down Lashley as Kross hit the crosshammer on him, and expect things to culminate with some kind of showdown at WrestleMania 40. One thing fans won't see at WrestleMania 40 is the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, which will instead take place on the go-home edition of SmackDown. It's sad that this match won't be on the WrestleMania stage, as in the past, it had guaranteed a lot of talent a Mania payday, but they'll have to make do with competing on SmackDown instead. And that was SmackDown, which did a lot in terms of setting up more matches for WrestleMania, while also furthering feuds that have already been booked for the event. The 6-woman tag team match will be one to check out at WrestleMania, while Lashley and Cross will probably put their stables against each other, and the same can be said for LDF and LWO. We've also got some decent wrestling this week, as none of the matches on Friday's show felt unnecessary, and a couple of them stood out for good reasons. Belair and Kai put on a fun main event, but Pretty Deadly vs. Orton and Owens was probably the biggest highlight, and the New Catch Republic vs. Angel and Berto match is also worth watching. Even though a couple of matches could have used some more time, SmackDown didn't have any segments that felt like they brought down the show. At New Japan's Battle in the Valley event, Jack Perry made his debut for the promotion and not only attacked Shota Umino, but seemingly tore up his contract with All Elite Wrestling. This marked Perry's first pro wrestling appearance since the suspension for his involvement in the 2023 AEW All-In Brawl, and it certainly caught the attention of fans. Speaking to New Japan in a recent interview, Perry discussed tearing up the contract and made clear that he's not going to play by New Japan's rules anymore. He said, "Ripping that contract was a declaration, I'm not playing by your rules anymore. If AEW are too afraid to have me anymore, if the specter of Jack Perry is too much, they don't want to deal with the conversations, the ramifications that brings, then that's fine." While Perry ripped up a contract, it's been said that AEW turned down his request for a release and even had plans to bring him back to TV before CM Punk returned to WWE last November. Perry is still with AEW despite what the tearing of his contract implies, and we'll have to see what's to come for him as he continues to face the fallout of the All-In fight. It was back in January that Vince McMahon resigned from WWE for the second time due to the Janelle Grant lawsuit, in which the ex-employee alleges that McMahon took advantage of her. In the suit, Grant states that she was vulnerable as she was in need of a job and had lost both her parents, which led to the alleged role she was given in WWE that resulted in trafficking. Recently, Dr. Martha Hart appeared on News Nation and when asked about the McMahon scandal, said that she wasn't surprised that these allegations have come to light, stating, "I was a little reluctant to come on, but I thought it's such an important topic that I wanted to be able to contribute to that. No, I was not surprised when I heard there was yet another lawsuit against Vince McMahon and WWE. Over the years, the WWE, they've had many lawsuits and they've had a lot of bad press. I tell you, I read all of the 67 pages in that complaint and it is absolutely horrific. I have to say that the level of wickedness that's described is beyond the pale in that complaint, and anyone with a shred of humanity would find the indignant act just incomprehensible, frankly. So it wasn't a shock that there was another lawsuit, but the level of, depravity there certainly was, and I'm a doctor in mental health." Martha also spoke about her role as a mental health professional and believes that McMahon did take advantage of Grant and used her vulnerable status to his advantage. "I'm also the founder and director of the Owen Hart Foundation, so no matter what hat I'm wearing, I always work with at-risk people. I can tell you that anyone who takes advantage of a vulnerable person is the most despicable type of person, because these are people that need to be supported and protected, not exploited, and by Janelle Grant's own admission, she was a vulnerable person. She was unemployed, her parents had passed away, she was suffering with grief, and she was also just on the cusp of financial collapse. So these are all the makings of a very vulnerable person." McMahon reportedly has no vocal support left in WWE, as those who have previously tried to back him now see that he's gone, he's not coming back, and he can't be defended. Vince McMahon has denied all allegations from Grant's lawsuit, which he claims is rife with fabrications, but Dr. Hart, and countless others, certainly believe what has been claimed. And we're ending with more from McMahon, who recently unloaded 3.484 million shares of TKO stock, mere weeks after selling 5.35 million shares in WWE's parent company. New information has come to light about the most recent sale, as it's reported that McMahon made close to $100 million by unloading the 3.484 million shares to an undisclosed bank. This is McMahon's third significant sale, as his first transaction saw him part with 8.4 million shares that earned him nearly $700 million. Cumulatively, McMahon has garnered over $1.2 billion from these sales, and the reason behind his divestment and the purpose of these substantial funds remain undisclosed. McMahon still retains ownership of 11.5 million TKO shares, valued at nearly $1 billion, based on Thursday's closing market price of $86.41 per share, so he's not gone completely from TKO.